Well, here we are. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. And this time around, we're going to talk about the Roseberys sale. You may recall a month ago, we did a preview of this auction. This was the auction house in the UK that went on that house call a year or so ago. And this old English country house and came across a bunch of Chinese bowls that had been in storage for the last 100 years, and the auctioneer was pretty excited about it, and they went in and looked at them. Very, very nice examples. We did a preview on it. Beijing, Qinlong, market period bowls, all kinds of stuff. And this was the sale. It was held at Roseberys on the 29th in two parts. Part 1 and Part 2. And both sales were very, very interesting. And they had some very strong results in both sales. And apparently most of the stuff came out of this one house. It was quite impressive. And I'm going to go through and talk about some of the results and show you how they did. Here they are. These are the bowls. You may remember looking at them. I think we did the preview video back on about the 9th of October. And here they are. Lots of very nice examples. This was the front end of the sale. I forget how many lots there were, about 30 or so lots, 31 lots. And the results were excellent. And this is sort of classic of what was happening. During the preview, we talked about it, how the estimates were very, very modest. They had very, very reasonable estimates. This bowl is a Qinlong market period bowl, estimated just 8,000 to 12,000 pounds. And at the time, we speculated, well, maybe they made the estimate a little bit low. Maybe there are hairlines or condition issues and so forth in the bowl. No, there weren't. This bowl ended up selling for 44,000 pounds. It was a beautiful example, very nicely proportioned, nicely potted, good shape to the bowl. The green was good and crisp. The colors were vibrant. The underglazed blue looked very, very good. All of it, all the way around. And obviously, there was a lot of interest in this. Whenever collections like this turn up in the market, there's always a lot of interest in them because they're fresh to the market. They're interesting. It's an evocative story. And just imagine, being able to go out and buy, pieces like this by the stack. All right, and then there was this bowl, this very nice Zhenjiang marked Dogan Bowl with underglazed red or red enamel rather, with gilding on it. And this is a very fine type. And this is a pretty rare type of bowl, and it has a sgraffito ground, which is the incise decoration. I don't know if you can really see it very well. There you go, up here at the top, these scrolls that go through the porcelain, and this is that incise decoration that the Chinese were so good at, and did quite a lot of especially during the end of the Qinlong period and into the 19th century. And here's a very good example of it. But this is an unusually colored bowl, very, very rare, and there was a lot of interest in it. It was estimated at 10 to 15,000 pounds, ended up selling for 34,000 pounds, well over the estimate. And then hopping along to this was a pair of bowls I just happened to like. They weren't terribly big. They were 4 or so inches in diameter, 4.5 inches in diameter, and they was done in this beautiful sacrificial blue with overglazed gilding on them. And they weren't absolutely perfect in the gilding. They had some wear here and there, but I thought they had a certain charm about them. I liked the way they were potted, the way they flared out, and they have the Buddhist symbols and wheels and lotus flowers on them, rue heads and so forth, lappets. They are marked on the bottoms. Here we go. There were the bases. And I thought, these are great. These are absolutely nice. As I said, Dogan market period, and the kind of thing that, well, maybe you're not in the position to jump into a $50,000 or an $80,000 bowl or something, but a nice pair of sacrificial blue smaller bowls, Dogan market period with gilding, for 4,986 pounds. Not a bad buy. Not a bad buy. Thought the estimate was reasonable, and maybe one of you got them. I hope you did. And then hopping over to these Shenzhen marked Taoist bowls or Lohan bowls, the 8 Lohans on them. These were very, very nice. And these are always tricky because there are very, very few authentic market period Shenzhen bowls around. They don't turn up very often. They rarely turn up because it was a fairly short sort of odd period in the 19th century, and not a lot of organization going on. They had all kinds of problems, and porcelain production probably wasn't quite what it should have been. But the pieces they did make were quite exceptional. And when you look at these with the Lohans and you look at the fine detail of the faces, the little bits, the way the eyes are done, the brows, the gentle shading, the slight shading of color and so forth, the delicately placed little pine needles all over the place, the way the tree trunks were done, all the little details, very, very charming. The sleeping fellow down here at the bottom with his hand on his resting his head and so forth. All of them with different facial expressions interacting with each other. Very, very interesting. And these were not great big bowls either. These were about 6 inches in diameter, but it was a pair. It was a pair of Lohan bowls, and they were estimated very modestly, 8 to 12,000 pounds, and they ended up going for 130,000 pounds. I think they were the highest priced lot in the sale, from what I remember. And then you have this. This was a very nice Dogan Bowl. This was, it didn't bring quite the estimate. It was estimated at 60 to 80,000, which is a pretty aggressive estimate for a Dogan Bowl. But these were very, very pretty, beautiful colors. Came close, 54,000 pounds, which is nothing to sneeze at. And there it is. And when you bring these in, you look at it, and you look at the way the vines and the greens are shaded and so forth. We're using the use of black to imply a slight shadow, a slight darkening and so forth, which is something very, very interesting on these. I think it really made them very, very attractive. And the colors are nice and crisp. The underglazed blue, the pinks, the reds, and all this, and that beautiful, beautiful yellow on this bowl, exceptional. And it did very well, 54,840 pounds. And then hopping along over to this one, this was the most expensive of the yellow bowls. It was a Dogan Marken period bowl. It was estimated at 60 to 80 and went well over that to 124,000. And there it is, also beautifully painted, a sort of a rare form, this particular pattern. And there was quite a bit written about how these were made and when they were made and why they were made and why they suddenly stopped making them. For that matter, this was one of those deals. So this sort of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. And this is not a huge bowl either. It is about 7 inches in diameter, roughly, a fairly small bowl, but beautiful quality. The quality was excellent. 123,740 pounds. And then that was and the whole sale went this way. This is the thing. You can go over there. There aren't that many lots. You can paw through it. One of the things that didn't sell, which kind of surprised me in a way because furniture had been doing so well in the market, were the Zeton lanterns. They were estimated at 80 to 120,000 pounds. They didn't sell. So if you liked them and you were thinking of buying them, you get a hold of Roseberys. They want to hear from you. These auction houses like post-sale deals, most of them. If you approach them for lots that passed, there were a few lots that passed. There was only 1 or 2 lots here that passed, but the second part of the sale had a few passes. And I think that if you approach them nicely, they may want to talk to you about selling them to you. Because they want to get them off the books. They want to pay their consigners, of course, like all auctioneers do, and get going. But this is it. This is the second part of the sale. And there were some very, very, very nice pieces in here. And I'm going to walk through just a few of the ones that caught my eye that I liked. Maybe they may have been things we talked about before. One of them was this. We talked about this pomegranate brush pot, 17th century pot. I thought it was awfully nice. Good deep carving on this. Very nice color, undisturbed surface. Had everything going for it. And at the time, I remember commenting, I think the estimates on the bit on the low side of just 8 to 12,000, because in the past we've seen this type of bowl, this type of brush pot rather, turn up, and they do bring $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. This one sold for 18,000 pounds, which is about 24,000 US. But it was a beautiful example. Lovely example. And if you're a Scholars collector, Scholars object collector, you know that this was a heck of a nice brush pot. Beautiful example, good color, everything going for it. And then over to this. This was that Hayashi Kenji piece of cloisonné from Japan. I just liked it. It was very, very good quality, very reminiscent of Namakawa Yatsuyuki's work. It was estimated modestly at 8 to 1,200. I thought it would do better. It did. It sold for 1,900. But I don't think that was a big price for this. This was a spectacular piece of cloisonné. Beautiful piece of Japanese cloisonné work. Absolutely lovely. Maybe you can think of a better one, but boy, this is an awful nice thing. And I think this was actually a very, very good buy. It was done at the end of the Meiji period, probably between 1900 and 1907, something like that. But it's a lovely, lovely example. And it measured just 6 inches tall. So it was a nice size piece of cloisonné and in beautiful condition. And I think 1,968 pounds was a very fair price for that. And then over to this. This was a very good 18th century export teapot, sold for 367 pounds. But it's one of these port scene pots. I've always liked these, the harbor scenes. And there you have the fort in the middle and all this. And this is a pattern that people have seen before. It looked pretty good. It looked like it might have had a little restoration in through here. It's hard to tell. There is some wear to the gilding on the handle, but a very nice classic sort of China trade pot. Had a very low estimate, or a very modest estimate, 200 to 400. It made that easily. Went for 367. And then this was that big vase. And again, it was one of these things where we thought the estimate was low. I suspect they put a low estimate on it to encourage interest. But as we said then, we've seen big pieces like this sell for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. And this was a nice one. Beautiful landscape setting, nice figural scenes, good tone of color, lightly painted, not heavy. Has a real sense of lightness to it. There's the other side of it, and there's a figure outside, a woman with children at a table. Very interesting, very charming, sort of intimate scene in the courtyard with animals and the children. One of them here is sitting with his mom. It looks like she's trying to show him something on the table. Another one's being led by a mother holding up flowers and so forth. Really very nice. But this was a fairly good sized vase. This jar was 54 centimeters high, so it was around 20 inches in height. It was a good size one, and ended up selling for 8,528 pounds against a 1,000 to 1,500 pound estimate, which is just artificially low. It's not accurate. And then there was this. I don't know if many of you noticed this, and I didn't mention it in the preview. I wish I had. This is a very rare bowl. It's a Lohan export bowl with figures on it. And this is a type of bowl you do not see very often at all. The patterning on it was excellent. The artwork on it was really, really beautiful. Notice the quality of the facial features and so forth. Good enameling. Love this guy's profile. He's holding up the pagoda in his other hand and sort of showing off to this young man. So he's lecturing him, and he's sort of giving him a cross-eyed look, like, "What are you doing?" Anyway, this had a very I don't know why the estimate was so low on this, 300 to 500. Maybe it was heavily restored or something. Did it have a lot of work done to it or something? Yeah, it wasn't in great shape interior-wise. You can see it's got a big hairline here, and it looked very dirty. Any rate, maybe that's why. Maybe they didn't recognize it. Who knows? It ended up selling for 5,500 pounds against a 500-pound high estimate. Beautiful thing, though, isn't it? And then there was this tray. I talked about this tray in the preview because I thought this will be a great object for somebody who wants to own a really, really nice piece of Chinese Beijing enamel that isn't going to break the bank. But it's a perfectly nice example. Here it is. It's done like a portrait scene. You have the scholar crossing the bridge at the top, and then somebody at the bottom, a monkey on a horse pulling something down out of a tree. Another monkey helping him, and then the figures, the scholars in between reading scrolls and talking and so forth inside of sort of an outward framework of silk balls. And it was estimated just 300 to 500 pounds, sold for 420 pounds. And this was a decent sized thing. It was about 9 or 10 inches. Yeah, it was 10 inches long and about 6 inches wide. So it was a decent sized piece of enamel. Not a bad price, perfectly reasonable. And then there was this, the European subject of Diana the Huntress, painted on an enamel gilt bronze belt buckle. This was, I thought, awfully nice, sort of an elegant thing. The metalwork on it was very, very good around the outside, very classic with bats and scrolls and so forth. And then you have Diana in the middle, which must have been interesting for the Chinese artist. It was estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, ended up selling for 4,198 pounds. And then over to these. These were an exceptional pair of square Canton enamel dishes from the 18th century. They were wonderful landscape scenes, very, very delicately painted with calligraphy. And the calligraphy is what drove the price on these. Whenever you add script to these and coupled with this very, very, very fine enamel work, and they appeared to be in quite good condition. They're the backs and so forth. All of it packaged makes them very desirable. The estimate was 800 to 1,200, which was perfectly reasonable estimate to make. Went well beyond that, and they ended up selling for about roughly 1,000 pounds a piece. Not $3,936 pounds. And then over to this. This was another very lovely. I'm going to talk about the enamels because there was a big. If you like Beijing enamels and things like that, and you want to collect them, go to the Roseberys site and save the images because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them in this sale. And some of them are very nice little cups. Some of them are little vases. Some of them are little trays and so forth. This was a tray, obviously, a lobe tray, sort of a lotus form lobe tray with a yellow cup. But this very soft yellow, very, very attractively done. Very good use of negative space. I like the ascending dragonfly and the peonies, bright pink peonies blossoming and so forth. And it was estimated at just 100 to 250 pounds. It ended up going for 6,000 pounds. And I think that's largely one. I think I agree with the dating on them, which they published as 18th century. But I think it was because the colors were so lovely and light. And let's see, Roger Cavern, they referenced a similar example that he had in his one of his sales back in about 3 years ago. And the tray was about 9 inches wide, 8 inches, roughly 8 inches wide, a little over 8 inches wide. Nice example. And then over to this is the hand warmer. You see these Beijing enamel hand warmers fairly often. They pop up here and there. And this one wasn't perfect. You notice it had a chip out of it up here. It had a lot of chewing around the edge, but a very unusual soft yellowish green color with very, very nice delicate enameling. I don't know how they dated this one. To me, it looks late 18th, early 19th century. Estimated at just 600 to 800 pounds, which was probably the right estimate to put on it because of the condition. It had some condition issues. The top of it was nicely decorated, but you'll notice there were a lot of losses on this thing. A lot of losses running around it. And it's still, because of the color, I think it's because of this color, still managed to sell for $3,936. And then over to this. This is a rare bird. It's a Chinese painted enamel and gilt on a copper baluster base with paste inset borders. Qing Dynasty. And they didn't include any other pictures of it. But boy, what an unusual piece this is. Notice the semi-precious stones and gemstones. I doubt those are rubies and emeralds. Maybe they are. They didn't say in the description, but notice the shading of the body of the vase itself underneath the gilding, where it goes from cobalt to almost purple, and then back to cobalt, and then shades of blues and greens and all this. So there's this wandering color palette going on in behind it. And this looks a bit like some of the Imperial Workshop stuff that was done, and that may be what the buyers are thinking. That there was an Imperial Atelier that made this kind of stuff, and there may have been some strong speculation that that's where this came from. It was dated as 18th or 19th century, and it was estimated at just 8 to 1,200 pounds, ended up going for 34,000 pounds. And this wasn't a big vase either. This thing, what was it, 9 inches tall. It wasn't a great big vase. It looks big, but it wasn't. And then hopping along over to this was one of the pieces we did talk about. I remember looking at this. This is an awfully nice Chinlung bowl. Beautiful, beautiful example. If I get it to load, there we go. But this had that interior landscape scene. And it looked very much, the painting on this was very much every bit like the really fine Chinese watercolor export paintings, China trade paintings, that quality of precision of brushwork. And here you have on this table over here, this bamboo table, all kinds of scholars' objects. The kids are doing their studies. Mom's teaching. She's holding a bird or something in her arm. Another attendant is bringing more books. And you have a stack of books over here on the table. And coral and peacock feathers and incense burners and all this other good stuff. And these happy little Chinese kids here doing their homework on this very nice terrace. You can almost imagine what it would have been like on that day. It was so beautiful. And then you have this fairly elaborate yellow border on the edge, beautifully filled in with flowers and vines and one thing and another. Beautiful combination. And here's the back of it, and mark and period. All right, and that all goes a long way, mark and period piece. And it ended up selling for 47,000 pounds against a 3,000 to 5,000 pound estimate. But it certainly does, the workmanship, all of it, there's no doubt that it was market period. And that's why it took off, because that's the kind of work they could do back then. And then the last thing was this, the big jardiniere that was estimated at 20,000 to 30,000 pounds. This was quite long. This was a big piece, 41 centimeters wide and 65 centimeters long. This was a nice big piece, so it was over 2 feet long. And but beautiful quality decoration. Notice the landscapes, how they work the landscapes into the corner of the tray. And then you have these panels of butterflies and aquatic plants and one thing and another. Just so much going on here. And here you have aquatic birds wading in the water, fishing, doing a little fishing with insects floating around above them and so forth. but very, very lovely decoration. This was a really nice thing, and it ended up going for 28,000 pounds. Beautiful example. So overall, Roseberys had a really, really good sale. They should be very, very pleased with themselves. They did their homework. They promoted it well. They got the sale out nice a month ahead of time. Get the word out. I know a lot of people went to the preview and they were, favorably impressed. I emailed a couple of people before they went and said, were you going out there? And they said, oh yeah, we're going. And I know they did. And I hope they got something. But overall, Roseberys did a great job, and congrats to them. And hopefully they'll attract more in the future. We'll keep an eye on them. All right. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet here on YouTube, please do. If you've joined us over on Patreon, thank you for joining us there. You've joined us on the global pages over at bitamount.com for the stuff we find on live auctioneers and so forth each week, and talk about other things. And leave a comment, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, boost us in the algorithm, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. All right. Bye-bye.